sucks when it's like it's not your fault that all of this is like just gone. But you can't do anything about it.
I realize that there's more to life than just high school and graduation. So you just kind of have to look to the next thing and keep moving forward.
That was Chelsea Pitt and Clay Mortensen. They are two Box Elder High School students who graduated in 2019, talking about how in-person graduation ceremonies were canceled last year due to the pandemic. Welcome to our In Focus discussion tonight on high school COVID commencements. Students and families are sacrificing a lot over the past year. The pandemic putting some students on hybrid schedules, canceling after-school activities, and students wearing masks following state guidelines. This week, the state got rid of most of its COVID-19 restrictions, allowing high schools to have in-person graduation ceremonies. We want to know how students are feeling about the big move, should they be concerned, and how will they remember the 2021 commencement. Joining us now is Nima Delphine. Welcome to the show, Nima. I'm proud to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Okay, so you're a senior and you're at Jordan High School in the Canyon School District. How are you feeling about participating in that live commencement?
I think it's amazing. I think that the fact that Jordan is able to give this opportunity for their students is extremely extraordinary. And I believe that I can see that they're doing what's best for the students, not just what's best for the school.
Are you happy that the Beat Diggers get to have their graduation ceremony this year?
Yes, I'm very excited, and the fact that I am a big digger myself and that I'm going to be able to attend that ceremony and be able to walk down that, I think it's amazing that I get to be able to accept my cap and gown at our field.
All right, now let's talk about how you got there, because you were a representative of the Canyon's Board of Education Student Advisory Council, and you saw last year's virtual graduations. Now, in the back of your mind, were you really thinking about your graduation this year?
Due to the fact of the COVID regulations, a lot of people were not able to access the graduation of last year. But looking forward to our graduation this year, I think that Jordan is going above and beyond for their students, that they're trying to do what's best for us, and that's just amazing.
Now, Nima, let's go back to last year when the schools were closed. How did you have to adapt as a student to help the district get to the point that it's at today?
Last year we were online for a little bit, but then I seen that we were trying to do things right for the students and do what's right for the teachers. And as we were going to go in person, Jordan had that chance. Unlike other schools, they might have still had to do online, but Jordan had the opportunity to do it in person, and that they went and did extraordinary measures for us. And I think that's incredible.
High school, it's all about the experiences, right? So for the most part, and most of us, we use that high school experience to learn how to socialize with others. How would you say that you and your classmates were able to navigate that whole thing?
I think it was not just me and my classmates. District, they all tried to navigate things. Even the regulations, they were just they're not going to let that hold them back, that they're going to do what they need to do to make this a great environment for their students and a great environment to be. Even though we're in a pandemic right now, they make sure we were safe and still enjoying our time and feeling as if we're still at school, and just making it as similar as it was 2 years ago.
Nima, I know when I was a senior, we were implored to give advice to the younger folks. What's some of the things that you can share to some of your other high school classmates that may be graduating next year?
I would say to continue to strive, continue to be amazing. Don't let anything stop you. That even if you are struggling, your school's always going to be there to provide for you. That even if you are having challenges, that don't think you're going through it alone, because you have a whole class with you. As a senior, I know I'm not alone going through this, because we're all going through this together. The whole pandemic and graduating, going on to college, we're doing this together, not just alone.
Nima, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a personal question for the last one for you here. How much do you think that the pandemic has shaped you personally? I want you to tell us what you think you'll look back on for 2021's graduation.
The pandemic has taught me that no matter what life throws at you, that you can overcome it, that even us as a nation, as a world, that we can just overcome it all. Like, I've seen that we did not let COVID stop us, the regulations stop us. We're just going above and beyond. And looking forward in the future, I will really look back at this day and say that, you know what, if I could overcome this, that there's no challenge thrown at me in the future that I can't overcome.
Nima, I'm going to leave it to you. You get the last word. What's one thing you want to tell Utahns tonight?
I think that you guys just have confidence in Utah. I know that the schools, that everywhere, that we're all doing this for you, and know that Utah has you and that we're all connected together, that we're going to go through this together. We're going to overcome and strive.
Nima Delphine, thank you for your time tonight and starting off our In Focus conversation on high school COVID commencements. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
This class had to go through the most unique challenge of any class in recent memory, and we just wanted to be sure to honor them in an appropriate way, honor all their hard work. What they had to do with distance learning under COVID-19 was extraordinary.
That's Derek Jensen, the Director of Communications for Judge Memorial Catholic High School, sharing the challenges facing the class of 2020. Now, this year's students also had numerous issues to overcome, and now they'll get to see some part of some sort of normalcy. Thanks for staying with us. We're talking about high school COVID commencements this evening. For our second In Focus discussion, we're going to learn what Salt Lake City School District has in store for us this year. Joining us by Zoom is Salt Lake City School District's Executive Director of Communications and Community Relations, Yandri Chatwin. Yandri, thanks for being with us tonight.
Happy to be here, Jason. Thanks so much.
All right, so we're going to get right into this. Salt Lake City School District has 7 graduations you're planning for. We're going to show some of those graduations in just a second, but here's the big question we need to know. How is the district planning on handling crowds? Will there be a cap on guests?
That's a great question, and the answer to the cap on guests is yes. We will have a cap on guests. 4 of our high school graduations for our larger schools will be held at the Huntsman Center. And luckily for us, the Huntsman Center is treating this just like they would treat any concert or basketball game. So there will be 4 tickets allowed per student, and they'll have seat numbers. They'll make sure that each group of 4 seats is spaced 6 feet apart. The event will be ticketed by the Huntsman Center, so their staff is going to help us manage crowd control. We do have 3 smaller high schools, 2 charter schools, and an early college high school. But since the graduating classes are a lot smaller, those are a lot easier to handle crowd control. And there will still be a limit on guests for those high school ceremonies.
Yeah, our viewers are seeing those graduations right now, so we got to ask, are there any masks that are going to be required at these graduation ceremonies?
Yes, there will be. For the ceremonies that will be held at our schools, we've got to remember that the mask mandate is still in place inside K-12 buildings, so we will definitely be enforcing masks. And the Huntsman Center is working with guidelines advised by the health department, so they will require masks both inside the venue as well as outside.
All right, well, thank you for that information. Now, the district, they started off the school year with digital learning. Now, while going back to the in-person learning last January, no school, or was it last March, no schools were shut down for the COVID case counts. Talk to us about how the cases were managed, and does the district feel that the low numbers are because of the COVID safety measures that you had in place?
Yeah, those are some great questions. So a couple of things. One, we waited until a little bit later in the pandemic to come back in person. I think if we had started the year a little bit earlier, we might have seen a little bit different results in our schools. But we do feel really lucky that we have not had to shut down. We've worked with the health department every time that a case has been identified. The individuals have had to quarantine and wait a little bit before they could come back to school. We've also been using test to play, test to stay, and that has helped us to make sure that we're monitoring those cases and keeping our school community safe.
Awesome. All right, well, let's revisit the last school year. There was a lot of changes for the district and its students. You just mentioned some of them. So how do you think this pandemic school year is going to be remembered right here in Salt Lake City?
I think the theme of the year is resilience, not just for us, but across the state, but specifically in Salt Lake. Our students, as you mentioned, were the only ones who started online, They saw their peers having different educational experiences, and we're so excited that we'll be able to offer some sort of normalcy in terms of the high school graduation ceremonies being in person this year. I do also want to add that for those who have more than 4 guests they'd like to bring, that the ceremonies will all be live streamed, so you can have as many guests participate remotely as you'd like.
Now, since everything was virtual last year, how's your staff feeling about having that in-person commencement?
I think it'll mean a lot for them too. I mean, the achievement isn't just for the students, but these teachers have done so much to support students along the way. We were really lucky to hear from Dr. Jill Biden at one of our schools yesterday, and she spoke to educators because it's National Teacher Appreciation Week. And I think her words just meant a lot. She talked about the fact that teaching is hard no matter what, and this is probably the most difficult year ever to be a teacher. So I feel like the ceremonies aren't just for the kids this year, but also for the staff that helped get them there.
And I'm sure it was a lot of work for all the custodians and lunch cafeteria folks that had to get everything together. So we are appreciative of that. But Yandri, I got one more question for you, the big one here. Where can parents find all of the district's graduation information?
We've got that info on our homepage, slcschools.org. Scroll down and there's a little button that'll tell you more about graduations this year.
Hey Yandri, thank you for joining us. This is Yandri Chatwin with the Salt Lake City School District. Again, thank you for coming and joining us tonight. I know you were pretty busy.
Thanks so much, Jason.
So I think when you see the CDC put that out, it means that they feel that the evidence is very good and that they feel more confident in making these recommendations to a larger number of people.
That was Dr. Todd Vento 2 weeks ago reacting to the news that the CDC guidelines were being lifted for the outdoor masking. Now, welcome to our third and final In Focus discussion on tonight for high school COVID commencements. Joining us right now via Zoom is Dr. Vento. He's the infectious disease doctor at Intermountain. Doctor, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason.
All right, well, let's talk about the CDC real quick because you just mentioned it 2 weeks ago. Officials came out with new information today. It looks like we're on a sharp decline for COVID-19 cases come July. I know that variants are a big concern, but how can Utahns make sure that our high school graduations are not super spreader events?
Yeah, I think as you just heard in the earlier piece about the continued safe distancing at the events, as well as the requirement for everyone who attends in person to wear a mask. And I think having it at a larger venue for some of the larger high schools will really make a huge difference. I think they're doing the Huntsman Center for many of the larger high schools with about a 15,000 capacity. So, you know, adhering to those same measures that sound just like a broken record, but they do work. And I would put a plug in for the most important thing that we can do in terms of trying to get out of the COVID pandemic would be to get the vaccine. And most high school graduating seniors, I would imagine, are probably over 16. So if they haven't gotten a vaccine yet, there's still time to get the vaccine even before graduation, at least get one dose in, maybe even a second, and certainly family members. So really push that to get folks to get the vaccine.
Doc, you kind of jumped ahead of me there because high school students, they do have the access to the vaccines. And with that in mind, how much should we worry about spreading the virus during the graduation ceremony?
Yeah, I think, you know, really, the measures that have been put in place or planned for these events are solid measures. We've shown them. We have lots of good data that show that they work. And there's going to be a lot of folks who have gotten the vaccine. I would still encourage folks to get the vaccine between now and graduation, not just for students if they're eligible by age, but for family members. And that age range will also drop here probably next week with an emergency use authorization for a Pfizer vaccine to go down to 12 to 15 years old as well. So, you know, lots of opportunities to push the vaccine. I think all those layers, just like we've been saying all the time, using all of our tools in our toolbox is what's going to help minimize the transmission. And if you're indoors, keeping the distancing and the mask together, you add in a lot of people with vaccines, then you've decreased your risk significantly.
What do you think about, you know, the space like the Huntsman Center or these high school football fields that these ceremonies are going to be had? What do you think about having those in there or those in place as a doctor?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's folks trying to balance risk, you know, do risk assessment, risk communication, balance the risk in terms of, are we indoor, are we outdoor? Outdoors always better. Distancing is your priority. If you can't distance, mask. But obviously, if you're indoor, you distance, you mask. You also hopefully you've gotten the vaccine. So it's not zero risk, but it's certainly significantly decreased if we can take all those measures. And I always feel like we have to apologize for saying the same thing for so long. But the reality is, this virus, as scary as it has been, we know what simple measures work, and we now have the measures we need. So I think it's up to all of us to try to keep doing that and get us to the finish line for this back to near new normal as soon as we can. But it's going to take us doing all of those measures, and most of us, if not all of us, really trying to commit to doing all those measures.
Well, knowledge is power, and sometimes we have to be reminded of it. So let's talk about some more of those safety measures here. School districts have rules in place for sports, for performing arts, and a lot of other activities. Is the graduation ceremony going to be any different?
Yeah, I think the difference would be just that the concept of if it's indoor and outdoor, that's different. If you're doing a football game and you're spaced apart and you're in a stadium crowd and you're still maintaining 6 feet and you've got ventilation, obviously, because you're outdoors, and maybe even some protection for UV light against the virus, all those measures will help. So when you're indoor, it just makes it more important that folks do pay attention to, not just, wearing a mask, but wearing it properly, having multi-layered mask, putting it over the nose and mouth. This doesn't count, right? That doesn't count. That counts. Make sure it's the right fit. Those things will be even more important if you're indoors. And I think just paying attention to that, I sense that people know what they need to do, and the goal will be to make it memorable occasion for the important reasons, not for, other bad reasons. We've had enough of that for a year and a half. We'll just celebrate and the accomplishments and the future prospects and excitement for all the young folks who are graduating. And I think to do that, take all the measures that we need to take.
Well, I think one of our own friends is having a graduation tonight. So, one of the cool things about having the mask at these graduation ceremonies is they get to put their 2021s up there on their mask and actually show them off in person. It's a kind of neat deal.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Like you used to put on the mortarboard, I guess. I can do both. Put something up here, put something over here. Favorite team, I guess.
It's a good way to show everything here. So, Dr. Vento, in general, I just want to ask you, how much longer do you think that we'll need these safety measures like physical distancing and mask wearing at events like these high school graduations?
Yeah, it's a $64,000 question, as they say. And I know the CDC has really been putting his thoughts out that the more we vaccinate, the closer we get to that. And so, they're talking about maybe as late July, early August, we can start to get a feel if we continue on the trend of vaccinating more individuals. That release of the vaccine for younger ages is going to be important because 22% of the United States is individuals less than 18, and they're not, by and large, getting vaccinated because they didn't have access to the vaccine. And so I think as that happens and we get more folks vaccinated, you'll start to see the CDC maybe loosening some of those. At least that's what we anticipate. And so I'd like to give you, August 2nd, but can't do it. And the things that will keep us safe to get to that point are going to be doing those measures, sticking to them, especially in these situations when you're indoor, lots of people. And then that way we will get closer to the near normal because we'll have fewer cases and we won't get more mutations or more variants. And I think it's just going to, we're close. We're a lot closer now than we ever have been. And we just got to keep going and keep working to get back to what we consider to be a new normal.
All right. Well, Dr. Todd Vento, thank you for spending time with us tonight and sharing so much of your wisdom.
Thank you.